So yesterday I did a video where I talked about what The Rock's response was on Pat McAfee, and then I did a follow-up video talking about the conspiracy theories that a lot of folks from JD from NY206, of Off the Script, and Salamonster Sounds Off, both of them do Tuesday Night Titans on Tuesday nights, as well as their own individual reviews of the wrestling shows and PLEs. Basically, JD, Salamonster, Vince Russo, Jonathan Coachman, who along with Russo used to work for WWE and, saw and met and knew these guys personally, I guess on a daily basis. But, them, I'm sure Cornette's chimed in, Geeks and Gamers have chimed in, World of Geekdom, Dave LaGreca of Busted Open Radio, he let it, really come out and everything. But basically, everybody has given their thoughts on the whole situation. Even Salamonster, who's going to be, I guess, on a mini vacation or doing something this weekend, which means he's not going to do a SmackDown review. But basically, even Salamonster posted today an audio clip. Well, actually, it wasn't a clip. That would have been from his podcast. But a standalone audio video talking about the whole situation, with The Rock's response on Pat McAfee as to why he wasn't, at WrestleMania. And even in that video that Salamonster posted today, and World of Geekdom did a video similar. And again, everybody's been putting on the conspiracy hats, and I talked about this yesterday. A lot of people feel that it's not totally obvious, visually or detail behind the scenes wise, but a lot of people feel that there's just too much evidence in their minds to not, make the assumption that there's something going on politically behind the scenes at WWE between The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Triple H, Paul Levesque. Now, I said in my video yesterday that I do not believe there is no way whatsoever that The Rock wants to, not The Rock, but Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan and Mark Shapiro would allow Triple H to be removed. There is no way whatsoever. And why? Because they themselves made it clear that they wanted Triple H in the position he's in now. So there's no way whatsoever I think they would want him to be removed. There's no way whatsoever. But yet, there's a lot of people that feel that just based on what's been happening lately, and especially with what The Rock told Dave LaGreca in response on Instagram to LaGreca's, rant and everything, his, just blowing up on, what happened at Mania, and then The Rock's response, to Triple H in his Hall of Fame speech. And Triple H during his Hall of Fame speech thanking everybody that was contributing, or that had contributed to his career, as opponents, allies, friends, mentors, whatever. He thanked everybody except The Rock. And then in The Rock's Instagram response to LaGreca's, his rant, his blow up on The Rock's excuse, The Rock told LaGreca, hey, you're welcome to join in with me, Cody, John, Brian Gertz, and many others on our creative meetings and share your thoughts. But until then, shut your mouth or stop ranting and enjoy stuff. He tried to be very, I guess in The Rock's way, humble in response to LaGreca's, blow up, if you will. And a lot of people took what The Rock said in that Instagram post where he mentioned everybody mentioned certain names like himself, Brian Gertz, John Cena, Cody, and then he said everybody else. The one name he didn't mention that he should have was Triple H, and he didn't. And a lot of people are correlating that sort of similar to Triple H not, bringing up The Rock as a contributing factor, or one of the contributing factors in him having the career that he did as an opponent and an ally. Now, why do people look at these and kind of try to piece them together to try to get an answer, you might ask? Well, it's real simple. It's because, again, being the conspiracy theorist that they are, putting on the conspiracy hats, they believe that this is the visual evidence right now, even though WWE, hold on, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Sorry about that, I got a little tongue-tied, but like I said, basically, they believe, even though WWE, nor The Rock, or Triple H, or anybody else close to them will come out and say it, they believe, based on the Instagram post that The Rock, put out in response to Dave LaGreca, to what Triple H, said in his Hall of Fame speech on Friday night. A lot of people, the reason they're trying to piece and correlate those things together is because they believe, even though WWE nor anybody else close to the two will come out and say it, that right there to them visually is enough evidence to feel confidently that there's something politically going on behind the scenes. Like there's a political struggle, a power struggle, if you will, behind the scenes between The Rock and Triple H, between Dwayne Johnson and Paul Levesque. Now, a lot of people also contribute that when they were opponents, they would kind of be very similar in nature, in stature, if you will, behind the scenes when ideas would be pitched to them for the matches against each other, or the matches teaming with each other, or whatever they'd be involved in. There'd always be some kind of like kickback from one to the other. Just a whole bunch of, things that they, will bring up. People will bring up, from what they've heard throughout the years, throughout the decades, that they believe is, again, evidence enough to add to what we see with the Instagram post by The Rock, Triple H's Hall of Fame speech, what's been going on. To them, there's too much evidence visually, and inadvertently, whether WWE wants to admit it or not, to not, indicate or not tell us straight to our face that something's happening behind the scenes. Something is going on. Because people say that Triple H felt more defensive this year than he did last year, or even the year prior, when being interviewed about WrestleMania, when it came to like fans being a little critical about what was going on, about the build and stuff. And in the past, Triple H, he would talk about it, but he wouldn't be as defensive. He'd be more like welcoming, a little defensive, kind of 50-50, welcoming and defensive. We'll put it that way. But this year he felt more defensive. And a lot of people chalk that up to, something going on. A lot of people chalk up The Rock's excuse on Pat McAfee as something going on. It's like everybody feels that there is a power struggle going on, between the two. And WWE, whether they want to admit it or not, knows it. Those within TKO, whether they want to admit it or not, know it. And whether or not they want to acknowledge it on both ends of the spectrum, TKO, WWE, Endeavor, you name it, everybody feels that those within those companies know something is going on. They're just not going to come out and say, yeah, there's a bit of a power struggle going on between the two, and one wants this, the other wants this, da-da-da. They're not going to come out and say it. They're not going to come out and say it, but to them it's visually, evident, and not just visually, but based on what they read and hear. Again, there's that old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, and they believe there's enough smoke going around right now that the fire is just going to continue to grow from a little flame, from a little ember to what it is now, like a little, let's say, campfire, if you will. A little campfire or fire you would have in a fire pit, that you'd put outside to, just sit around and warm up or talk about things. They feel that there is enough of a fire, kind of like fire pit wise, to where, it's too obvious not to theorize and speculate that something is happening. And again, everybody has a right to their opinions. Everybody has a right to theorize what they want to feel and believe. I have nothing against that. I'm the same way. But here's the thing. We don't know if that's true or not. Like I said in my video yesterday, Triple H and Rock can be friends, but any kind of friendship, especially if you kind of have a association in the same job area, same work environment or something, like you have an association, you can be friends, but doesn't mean you can't have egos that will clash. And even friends' egos, if they're basically sort of on the same, or try to be on the same wavelengths, in the same power structure, if you will, those will clash. Like your friend may think, oh, this is a good idea, let's go with that. But then you might say, well, yeah, but this here is a good idea, let's try that. So even friends and colleagues, friendly colleagues, if you will, can have egos that will clash. And yeah, it might lead, unfortunately, down the line to one of them not having that power anymore, and whether or not they'd be demoted, or maybe that person that won't have that power anymore may have more power. We don't know. So to me, when I look at Rock and Triple H, I have no doubt that they are good friends. They are, they do get along. But I think it's a clash of egos. It's a clash of egos to where Rock doesn't understand what he's doing is screwing up months and months and months of planning when it comes to events like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, Money in the Bank, you name it. He's messing up months and months and months, if not a year's worth of planning. So what I look at is this: if there is any truth to there being some kind of power struggle and all that, where the egos are clashing so much that people feel that because Rock has a little bit more power than Hunter, Dwayne has a little bit more power than Paul, that they feel, it's only going to be inevitable when Rock decides to get rid of Paul, or convince Ari to get rid of Paul. To me, if there's any truth to this, if I'm Ari Emanuel, if I'm Mark Shapiro, if I'm the guys above them, if I'm Nick Khan, I sit them down, I bring up, the fact that a lot of people, fans, podcasters, and insiders, and those within the companies themselves are stating that there's a power struggle. If I'm Shapiro, Emanuel, and Khan, I sit them down, bring that up, and I ask, if it's true, what is it going to take for you guys to stop butting heads? And if it's true and they have to do that, here's what I would suggest. If they don't give me a straight answer, I'll be like, okay, fine. Hunter, I look at Levesque and I'd be like, okay, Paul, what's the issue that can be resolved on your end? And Levesque, he could be like, well, look, we have all this set up and ready to go, and when he feels like it, he comes in and blows it up. I want to keep things as they are. I want to keep things straightforward so that way there's no confusion. And, if that's the case and Levesque brings that up, as, hey, that's my issue, I have everything always ready to go, but then he blows it up, I would go to Rock and go like, okay, Rock, what's it going to take for you not to blow stuff up? And then if I'm Rock, I'll be like, well, I have this idea for WrestleMania and this idea for SummerSlam. If we can incorporate those into the current ideas he has, then I'm not going to interfere. But I feel if we can go with these ideas, alongside his, kind of merge them together, it'd be great. So to me, if I'm Shapiro, Khan, and Emanuel, and I have to sit them down, bring up all this of, hey, people are talking, there's people in the companies talking. If I have to be them, and I have to sit these two down and try to straighten it out, and maybe they tell me, hey, like with Levesque, he can be like, look, I just want to keep things straight and narrow, no confusion, nothing being blown up and everything. But I also understand he has stuff, but I want to keep things straight and true. If I'm the guys above them, I'd be like this. I'll be like, okay, fine. Okay, here's how we do it. Here's how we settle it. Rock, you write down, you text up the ideas you have for each event, storylines you want for each event. And then you, Paul, you continue going with what you have, but always hold out one space in each of your major events for whatever he has planned. And there you go. So like, for example, if Rock wants to do his match with Roman, let's say at SummerSlam, not saying that's going to happen, but still, and Triple H is getting SummerSlam all figured out, Triple H would be like, okay, I got most of these matches all set, ready to go, but I'm leaving this open just in case Rock wants to do his idea, whatever it might be. Same with Survivor Series, same with Royal Rumble, same with WrestleMania, same with Money in the Bank. Just continue doing what you're doing, but always leave that one space open, for The Rock and whatever he has planned. And that's it. That's it. End of story. And I'm not saying it's going to get to that point, but you can't tell me Nick Khan, you can't tell me Mark Shapiro, you can't tell me Ari Emanuel are not hearing everything that's going on, hearing what people are saying, and not thinking, yeah, we got to resolve this before it gets, out of hand. And then maybe take them aside and say, okay, what's it going to take for you guys to work together and not butt heads anymore? And to me, I think what's going to happen, like I said, if it comes to pass, not saying it won't, not saying it will or won't, but if something like that comes to pass, then I think what's going to happen is Rock's going to say, hey, I have these ideas and everything that I want to do, but every time I present them to him, he's already planned out what he has scheduled to go. So again, I think the working coalition would be if they have to have a resolution, if that was to happen, if any of this conspiracy is true to an extent, then if I'm Hunter, if I'm Paul Levesque, I go on with business as usual. I schedule, I plan and everything. And when it comes to all my events, whether it's Raws, SmackDowns, the PLEs, I have everything still set the way it's supposed to be, but I always keep that one section open. That one section open just in case. And then basically maybe, in agreement, have Rock say, okay, well, if I decide I want to go through with this, I'll let you know within a couple of weeks. And maybe a couple of weeks advance, he can let the roster know, he can let creative know, they can still go on with what they're doing, but also they can acknowledge that, hey, everything's, running smoothly, even with the inclusion of what The Rock's going to do. And that's it. That's all they would have to do. It's simple. It's simple. And you know what's even crazier is I know people haven't brought this up. But if this whole thing with Rock is the fact that he didn't get to have his match at WrestleMania, last year with Roman, I'm sure people are saying to themselves, or asking themselves, well, wait a minute, Rock's part of the TKO board. He's essentially, outside of the ring, exactly what he says he is, the boss. So what's stopping him from going out to that ring, taking a page out of the playbook of him and John Cena from over a decade ago, and basically booking him and Roman a year in advance? That way, there's no interference, no confusion, and you can just go on with the plans as scheduled. I'm sure a lot of people, ask that question just like me. And honestly, there's nothing stopping him. There's nothing stopping him. I just think what it is, honestly, is he's so involved in his other commitments that when he does tune into the product, or he does get acknowledged about what's going on in WWE, only then does he decide to want to, only then, I'm trying to find the right way to say, only then does he decide that he wants to hitch himself to whatever he feels is going to be a big, big, massive deal. So again, I think honestly he doesn't pay that much attention, even though he says he does, because of all the other commitments. And when whatever gets brought up happening in WWE is told to him, he starts thinking in his mind, okay, what is coming up that they have planned that I can hitch myself to? And when he finally decides, I should say, that he wants to hitch himself to this or that, it's too late, and that's what causes a blow-up. So again, if there is any truth to what people are conspiracing on what's happening, I believe if there is any truth whatsoever, if I'm Ari Emanuel, if I'm Mark Shapiro, if I'm Nick Khan, I bring these two into the office, talk things over, and work something out to where Triple H can continue doing what he's doing without having to worry about things being blown up. I continue doing, what I'm doing, booking things, scheduling things, writing things, without an issue. But I basically have one space open on that chart, on that planning chart, just in case The Rock wants to, add himself to the equation and whatever he wants to be involved in. So, again, if there is any truth, like I said, the best solution for them to do is to take them into the office, talk things out, and work something out, if there's any truth. But, again, I think it's just a clash of friendly egos is what it is. I think it's a clash of friendly egos to the point that sometimes, they'll basically go on to what's known as silent mode when, acknowledging, them and all that, or they'll just, mention them in a passing way by saying others or whatever. They could still be friends and all that and colleagues, but there'll be times where they have to basically, keep a distance from each other speaking wise or, mentioning wise and all that, because they're still upset. It's about a cooling off period, is what I say. It's basically, to them, it's like a cooling off, let cooler heads prevail and move on. And that's it. That's basically it. But again, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Triple H, Rock, Cody, Cena, all of them have done a great job throughout the past couple of years of keeping things so close to the vest, that nobody, and I mean nobody, knows what's going to happen except for them. Nobody. I mean, for example, did any of us at the end of Monday Night Raw ever expect Braun Breaker to align himself with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman? Did we expect that? No. Did we expect him to be the answer to Roman Reigns? No. But yet, here we are. But like I said, yet here we are. Nobody expected that, right? Nobody expected Stephanie Valkyrie, the NXT Women's Champion, to make her Raw debut and have a decent 15-minute match out of the blue. Well, not decent, but a very good, match out of the blue with the Women's Champion, Io Sky. Excuse me, the Women's World Champion, Io Sky. Nobody expected that, yet it happened. You see what I'm saying? Basically Triple H, on his own and his team have done a very good job in keeping things close and tight to the vest. And when they collate and work accordingly with Rock and his team, or Cody and his team, or John and his team, guess what? They still keep things close to the vest, because you never know when and where things are going to happen. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Did we all think John Cena was going to turn heel at Elimination Chamber? No. Do we all think, based on what's happened, that it would have been better at WrestleMania? Yes. But, again, we didn't know. We didn't know. Point I'm getting at is none of us have any clue. Not even, and I say it with all due respect to the man, not even Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, not even he knows what's going on anymore. He might get an idea, but, he doesn't even know what's going on anymore. Now, once in a while, can somebody be right about something? Yes. I mean, everybody, from themselves to the mothers. Oh, Dave Meltzer, damn. Sorry about that. I had a big cough that just came up. But like I said, everybody from themselves to the grandmothers owe Dave Meltzer an apology, because somehow, some way, he got in contact with somebody that was able to give him information about what was going to happen with The Rock come WrestleMania. Nobody believed him, and yet, lo and behold, look what happened. So obviously, he had somebody close to the vest at $7 production. I'm sure Rock may never know, but had somebody close to the vest there, letting him in on things. But, and again, once in a while, people are going to get lucky. And Dave Meltzer, give him credit, got lucky there. He actually proved for the first time, I should say, in quite a while, he proved to be exactly what he used to be. A very journalistic, person. Sorry about that, wrong number on the phone. But anyway, for the first time in quite a while, he proved to be exactly what he said he was, or has always hyped himself to be, a very journalistic, person that at most times will report the correct information. Now, has he gotten a lot of other things right? over the past year or so, or the past couple of years? No, because Triple H and his crew have been keeping things close to the vest. So only once, when it was obviously necessary, and we should have paid attention, did he get something right. Now, the question obviously is this. Should we believe any of the conspiracy theorists theorizing based on what we've read, seen, and heard? Should we believe it? Honestly, I don't know. But I feel, in my opinion, there's no way they're going to let Triple H go. Ari Emanuel himself wanted Triple H in that position. And he's above The Rock, Ari Emanuel, that is. So there's no way Triple H is going to be gone. None. I think what it is, because I do believe they are good friends, the great respect, they have a lot of respect for each other, especially after all the wars they've gone through. I truly believe, in my opinion, that it's basically a friendly clash of egos. And just like with any friends in any work environment, one's gonna get their ego hurt. Probably for the second time in a row, a second year in a row. And they're gonna wanna keep to themselves. They're not gonna wanna mention maybe the person that maybe contributed to the ego getting bruised, by name, for a little while until things are cooled off. Same on the other side. So, to me, I think right now we should just let things, as the old saying goes, play out. And if there is any more evidence, visual, reading, visual, reporting-wise, whatever the case may be, if there's any more evidence that points to this fire in this fire pit growing and starting to grow and grow until almost it's out of control, then and only then can we really start wondering how long will it be until there's a very infernic explosion, between the two, and one has to go over the other. But until then, I say let's just wait it out, let it play out, and if there's nothing else that comes of it, then I think we can basically breathe a sigh of relief and basically be like, okay, maybe it was not a big deal, and hopefully next year, going into next year's WrestleMania, we won't have to deal with this kind of crap again. But like I said, if there is any truth to it, and it gets to Ari Emanuel, it gets to Mark Shapiro and Nick Khan, they need to take, they need to take Paul Levesque and Dwayne Johnson aside, work something out, and I think the most obvious thing to work out is Triple H continue doing what he's doing with his team, but always hold that one space open, throughout the year, just in case Rock wants to hitch himself to whatever they got planned, and either hitch himself in as a figure for the storyline to center around, even if he doesn't wrestle, or for maybe a match he can take part in. That's all he has to do. And if I'm Rock, I basically agree to that, but also agree to let him know that I will give him a few weeks, maybe a month's advance notice of whether or not I want to be involved. And that's it. You work that out, I think things would be fine. And also it's about creativeness and who's better at the creative. Again, like I said earlier, just have Brian Gertz and his team, head up SmackDown, and Triple H and his team head up Raw, and see who does it best. To me, that's the best solution. But honestly, I don't think there's any truth to, Triple H losing his job because, again, Ari Emanuel wanted him in there. And that's a fact. So, anyway, though, guys, that's just my thoughts on the whole situation. And basically, again, if there's any more evidence that comes out visually, document-wise and all that, puts more, gasoline on the little fire pit, the fire in the little fire pit and make it expand and explode even more, then, like I said, then we could start kind of wondering and truly, thinking what's next and all that. Because until, like I said, we get an infernic explosion, between the two that makes headlines, only then can we start wondering, is this it for Hunter or is this it for Rock? So that's all. I say let's just leave it for right now, wait it out, and if nothing comes of it, I think we could just all have a peace of mind for the time being. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, do all the things in the comment section to find me outside of YouTube. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later.